We're live, y'all. We were thinking about topics. We were running out of topics because this is the weird part of the season because we're like near the end of there's nothing going on. Like the summer league, I really feel like it's starting to die down, in my opinion. I think after I found out Wemby was sitting the rest of the summer league, I kind of got a little disinterested. I don't know about y'all.
Me too.
To be honest, after that, and then they said, I know, man, I always get his name wrong. Amen Thompson, he got hurt. They getting Scoot. They just announced today they sitting Brandon Miller. I've kind of lost most of it.
That's all. That's half the draft picks. Yeah, nobody go watch that.
Except for a couple like college guys I wanted to watch. But
yeah,
other than that,
yeah, that's disappointing. So that means, that's a good amount of the lottery picks are basically not playing. That's the whole reason people actually watch the summer league.
Yeah,
that's disappointing. I won't be watching it that much anymore.
I know Ty one of his Ty favorite players still in there, but
who Marquise Noel?
Yeah.
I'm root for that dude to the wheels fall off. I really hope he makes it and gets a spot in the league at some point. Who knows? The Raptors, like I said, they don't have much to lose right now. They're not going to be great next season, so just play them. Pascal Siakam's going to get traded. Just rebuild from wherever you're at right now. They're a good start.
Our favorite dude. I think he's still playing right now. Cam Whitmore. He was knocking down a couple of threes or something.
Yeah,
he's still playing. So he's still playing.
Yep. So one of the ideas we had today was to go with an all-time fantasy draft. We're going to go by position. So we're going to start today with centers. We're going to go with power forwards next week, small forwards after that, shooting guards, and then point guards all the way down, go by position. We're going to do a bracket style. So the way the bracket's set up is how it's set up right now. We're going to go player by player, matchup by matchup. And here's where things get interesting is the criteria. Because I know personally when I like to compare players, right, I like to always say, who's more skilled? And those conversations get tough because they get really tedious and they get really we don't get much out of those conversations because if I can't change your mind, it's just, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. So we're going to kind of go by whose career was more impressive, right? Yeah. Who did better, whose peak years were better, who did more, who maximized their prime years better. And I think that's a pretty good criteria to go with. These were the bigs we kind of came up with. There may be a couple we left off here, but I mean, I feel like these are. I don't know.
That kind of covers
Knicks.
To be honest with you.
Yeah, Knicks fans going to be like, "Where's Patrick Ewing at?" I know. He's an honorable mention, but I'm not going to put him on the list. But it's a couple that we're probably missing out. But oh well, they'll live.
Pat Ewing may be the one guy who was just kind of left out of this. I'm trying to think maybe who else. Pat. Anybody else who could have made this list possibly that just got left out?
Yao Ming.
Yao Ming. There are a couple of guys. Yeah, I feel like if we put Joker and Embiid in here, Yao Ming could have had an argument to have a spot in here, especially Joel Embiid.
But it's so many of those other players like that we didn't see play, like David Robinson and Moses Malone. We're gonna have to we're gonna have to put them in there, but because they have the jewelry for it to represent themselves. So
for sure. So we're gonna go matchup by matchup. We can start at the bottom or the top, and we can start with Joel Embiid versus Dwight Howard. And let's start at Joel Embiid versus Howard. This one is very interesting because this is one of those things where I test Joel Embiid, I think is a better player than Dwight Howard, right? Mm-hmm. High level shooter for his position, one of the better shooting big men we've ever seen. Yep. Great, mid post game, low post game and everything. But his peak right now, right? We're in the Joel Embiid prime right now. And if we look at the Joel Embiid prime, right? And then if we compare that to what we saw during Dwight Howard's prime, you have to ask the question, who maximized their prime a lot better? We're in the midst of the Joel Embiid prime and the Dwight Howard prime. We kind of saw that, I think, from his best years being like 2009 to 2011. And through that, people act like Dwight's career wasn't all that. We saw a finals appearance. We saw an Eastern Conference finals appearance, right? So I think Dwight Howard definitely maximized his best years relative to what we've seen Joel Embiid do over the course of his career.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I actually agree with you. Some people are going to look at the stats and be like, Joel averaged more points. But the time in which they played was kind of different. Like it was more defensive predicated back when Dwight Howard was in his prime in the early like 2010s and late 2000s, whatever the case may be, because he might have just barely averaged 20 points, but he also averaged double rebounds. It was like, I don't know. Joel Embiid was equally probably, would you say, who's the better defensive player?
Dwight Howard.
Dwight Howard, but Joel Embiid is a good defensive player also, but Dwight Howard has 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, and he led his team to the final. Something Joel Embiid is still struggling to get out the second round.
Yeah.
So I'll probably say just because I saw Dwight Howard at his peak, even though his stats might not seem as impressive, I can just go off what I just saw.
Yeah.
Basically from him. So I'll probably pick Dwight Howard, honestly.
Yeah, I think when you go player to player, I think offensively, Joel Embiid has a bit better game than Dwight Howard. But when you look at just the overall impact for his team, what Dwight Howard could do defensively, he's basically a stalwart down there in the paint, not letting nobody get in. I think Dwight has that better resume going head to head against Joel.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, and people have to realize he's people are not going to like this, but he spoiled the LeBron versus Kobe.
He did,
which everybody hates, but that's like something good to put on your resume. Oh, I stopped them from facing each other. Y'all didn't be able to see him and everything like that. He beat LeBron when LeBron was near his prime in the Eastern Conference Finals, so that's impressive in of itself. And he pushed Kobe to the limit, kind of. You want to say that? So
yeah, it's kind of hard to compare those two, kind of since they're. I wouldn't say they're. It's kind of crazy that we talk about like early 2010s, 2009 is a different era.
Yeah, because the game was different. Like they played more defense back then. So 20 points back then is kind of equivalent to 25 now. 25, 26.
And what you were asking
about 2008, 2009, like that's 20 years ago. That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, I mean the game just, like I said, Curry comes in and the game just drastically changes. What's interesting is I think for both these guys, this is going to kind of be a thing with a couple of big men here, is the comp. Dwight Howard, and here's where things get a little interesting. There was never really a point where there was another center that could really match up with Dwight Howard, or at least a guy who we could say, oh, he may be better than Dwight Howard at his position. With Embiid, he had a little bit better comp, right? Especially at his position. I mean, it wasn't all that much better, but he did catch DeMarcus Cousins in his prime. Anthony Davis is the power forward, but he did match up against 80 a number of times. Obviously, we've seen him match up against Joker and things like that. With Dwight Howard, he didn't really have as much comp. So when we get deeper into the comparisons and everything, one thing that's going to come up about Dwight, he dominated. Would Dwight Howard have been as dominant maybe in the 90s?
I think so. Yeah. I definitely think so. I think he would have been probably more dominant.
Yeah, for sure. Because the game was kind of similar in the late 2000s, early 2010s than it was in the 90s to me. Like you didn't need a center to shoot a jump shot or anything. He can just dominate, be the anchor of your defense, dominate inside on the offensive end. He'll be all right. So he'll definitely, If he probably average more points, honestly.
I got a hot take.
Yeah.
I feel like if Dwight and Shaq kind of switched careers and Dwight came into the league right when Shaq came in, I think he would have probably had the same impact Shaq had, if not better.
Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say about Dwight in the 90s. Because I see what you're saying. Here's what I'm going to say about Dwight in the 90s. I think Dwight would get drowned out in the 90s. So if we go down the list, Hakeem Olajuwon, you got prime Hakeem Olajuwon. He won 2 titles in the 90s. You had Patrick Ewing. You had David Robinson. You did catch Shaq in the Orlando days, right? So does Dwight Howard – so now how many bigs did I just name there? Probably like 4?
Mm-hmm.
So is he better than any of those guys?
Nah, he's not.
I mean, no, but I wouldn't. No.
But you also have to keep in mind. I don't know, like what type of hypotheticals you are talking about, in like specifically. But if you like reverse places or switch places, we already seen Dwight play with Kobe. It didn't work out. You saw Shaq play with Kobe. It worked out pretty well.
I mean, but
depending how you want to put that together, I don't know.
Kobe was kind of on the. I wouldn't say on the back burner, but that was some years. That was some years.
Yeah.
My thing with Dwight is I just his prime was great. His prime was weird because he never really had any confidence position. Right now, he did eliminate Boston, who obviously was a tough team, and there's KG on their roster. The year he did get that team to the finals, but relative to a lot of bigs in NBA history, tough thing about Dwight is compared to like a Moses Malone or like a Hakeem or David Robinson or a Shaq, he didn't really have to see another dominant big man. Like how many times in the playoffs did Dwight Howard himself have to go match up against another dominant big? David Robinson had to match up against Hakeem. Hakeem had to match up against Patrick Ewing. Hakeem matched up against Shaq.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's my one drawback. Dwight. So relative to Embiid, what Dwight maximized his prime. And again, Embiid's prime isn't over yet, but it's not looking too good from a playoff success standpoint. But I think Dwight Howard maximized prime more. But the only drawback on Dwight Howard is if he gets to a different era where there's more competitive position, does he stand out as much? Is he better than Alonzo Mourning in the 90s?
I'd say yeah.
I think he is.
Player.
And why I say I think he is because I know Alonzo Mourning and him are probably the same. They have the same physique, don't they? Probably. Dwight might be a little bigger. I don't know.
I think honestly, my main reason for making that my main reason for making that comparison is just physique and athleticism. I think when you talk about Shaq, who would come close to matching up with Shaq athletically, I think Dwight is probably the closest you can get to that.
Yeah.
You see what Shaq was doing back then. Dudes couldn't handle his ass. So.
Dwight definitely wouldn't have been able to handle his ass.
Oh no. But that's the thing, though. Shaq was obviously he was more physical, he was stronger, but athleticism wise, I think Dwight Howard had him in terms of just like jumping ability. But that's an interesting question. Will he survive in the 90s? It's probably a 50-50. I think he'll survive, but his prime, which was like you said, top 2009 to 2011, might not have been as good. Probably wouldn't. Yeah, to be honest with you.
Or maybe he puts up similar numbers, but like I said, there's no way he stands out. So that's my thing about Dwight is he had a hell of a prime during the 2009-2011 run, and we're talking about him versus Embiid. Obviously, it was a better run, right, than what Embiid's done so far. But if you have Dwight, we never saw Dwight with as much competence position. So if he plays in the 90s, where the game is more sad, that's the golden era of big men. Like I said, I mentioned about 4 guys there. Does he stand out as much? And how many all-time conversations does he really make? Does he make any if he's in the 90s? So that's the only thing about Dwight is I feel like we look at him a little bit differently if he played it in an era where there was a little bit more competence position. Like he caught Yao Ming kind of his best years came kind of on the back end of Yao's best years. He caught Shaq on the back end of his career.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's Tim Duncan and KG, but those are kind of powerful.
Yao Ming I think he was out of the league by the time.
He was in, but he was kind of phased out. Like he had a couple of good years, but he wasn't, So there was no second. The gap between Dwight and the rest of the big men in the NBA at that time was really large, right? And it wasn't that he was so much better than a lot of them, but if this makes sense, it wasn't that he was so much better than a lot of them. There just wasn't as much talent at that big man spot as there was in the 90s, obviously.
Oh, yeah, I feel you. I get that.
Yeah. Yep. So, but we're going to choose you, Dwight Howard. We're going to get picked. So.
We'll go with Dwight there. And like I said, and another thing about Dwight, too, is I think a lot of criticisms about his career were I'm a defend him. Right. People acted like he had no offensive game. And people just acted like he was just this shot blocking. Like for you to be a big man who's leading your team to the finals. And Carl, you always ask this question is how many big guys right now can actually lead their team to a title or lead their team to a final series? You had to have some level of offensive skill. Mm-hmm. So sometimes when people say things like, oh, Dwight never mastered his post game, he didn't master it. But to act like Dwight just had zero game is the dumbest thing in the world. You act like Dwight had zero game.
He had some offensive game. Obviously, you average 20 points per game in the NBA. You got
some kind of offensive game.
Yeah. Especially, I think people look. That's the thing. If you weren't alive or you didn't catch up on the highlights from the early 2000s or early 2000s, late 2000s or whatever, you're going to get kind of confused. Like, okay, today's people in today's league, they average 28 to 30 points, but people back then they only averaged 20 to 25. That's because the defense was simply better. So you have to keep that in mind too. 20 points back then in like 2008, 2009 is equivalent to 27, 28 in my opinion.
Yeah.
Ain't no regular dudes coming off the street averaging almost 30. So.
Yeah.
That's how you know some of the dudes back then were really good. Like we had some people averaging 30 in the mid 2000s. That's how you know they was legit.
Yeah. Let's go. This is one that was interesting, right? David Robinson and Moses Malone. This was a really interesting debate between these two players. When you kind of dig deep on the entire Moses Malone thing, his career as a big guy was almost as impressive as I feel like he's if I could say the most underrated center, who the most underrated center was when we have these legacy conversations, these all-time conversations, I would put him in there. What he did through the late 70s, through, some of the 80s for Houston and Philly were some of the most impressive things we've seen from a big guy. I think if we're going to compare him strictly to David Robinson, let's look at David Robinson. Let's kind of break down the David Robinson situation. For one, Moses Malone's prime, his best years, his peak years, way longer than David Robinson's peak years. David Robinson had about a good 5 years, then injuries came in and he never really returned to the player he was. We saw Moses Malone dominate and be a 20-plus, 10-plus guy for the span of 10 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we saw him do that. And then I think what he did in his 1983 season is one of the most impressive, MVP runs and finals runs we've seen. So Philly, right, they lose to the Lakers the season before in the finals. And they're like, the one guy we need to get over the hump is Moses Malone. Bring him in. Immediately, they're great. They come in. They make this title run. He calls a 4-game final sweep, right? So we have that iconic thing. The 4-4-4 thing, right? Then dominates, like, with Kareem by the 90s, right? Was considered the greatest player of all time. So dominates Kareem in that final series in 83. Completely by most big man categories you look at, dominates and wins finals MVP. It's one of the most impressive single seasons we've seen from a big guy ever.
Yeah, he averaged 25 points. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
He averaged 25 in the 83 season. He averaged 25 and 15 rebounds. And then a year before that with Houston, he averaged 31 points and 15 rebounds.
Yep. And that was crazy. Another finals run. So again, finals runs there in Houston where I think he's kind of on some carrying his team stuff. We want to go and have that conversation. But yeah, for him to go and outduel the best player in the game at that time, if that's what you want to say, maybe it was Bird, maybe it was Magic. Yeah, it wasn't Bird or Magic because they were kind of coming.
It was Dr.
I think honestly, bro,
Dr. J probably.
It was a lot. It was a lot of guys at that time.
Maybe it was him. Maybe he was the best player in the league at that time.
Hey, looking at these numbers, I don't know if you can refute it, but for his prime, that's a good point. His prime was a good 10 years, maybe a little bit longer, 10 or 12. I mean, 10 or 11 or 12 or whatever. But David Robinson wasn't that long.
Yeah.
So it was closer because when I put this list together, I was like, I think David Robinson win, but then I had to give myself a quick history lesson.
Yeah,
I'm probably gonna pick Moses actually.
I'm gonna always take that longevity over anything. To be honest.
Yeah, David Robinson wins the skills conversation. So obviously, better passer. I think he's a more skilled player than Moses Malone, if you want to say that. But when you look at, like I said, the prime for him, it wasn't as long as a lot of other guys here on this list. And there are a couple of guys who had relatively short primes compared to some of the other guys that we have listed here. And also his MVP season, how large was the gap between him and some of the other guys he won against? Matter of fact, David Robinson is the premier guy for getting quote unquote exposed. So he wins the MVP in 95. Right. And then gets torched in that conference final series by Hakeem. Hakeem outscored him by 12 points that series.
Yeah, didn't Shaq used to whoop his ass too?
He used to have he has to have his way against him. You know what I mean? So and then but here's the argument for David Robinson is the 2 rings to Moses Malone's 1. But then we go back to this: David Robinson wasn't the best player with any of those championships he won.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
Tim Duncan, and also the ones he won, especially the first one, was against I think an 8 seed. So that first one, was against that Knicks team. So we had Moses Malone, who outdueled arguably the best player in basketball,
pretty much
in his first ring. And then we have David Robinson, who got outdueled by a guy who came 5th in MVP voting to him, won a championship that same year. But then when he does get to the finals, he has 2 rings. I'm not discounting 2 rings, but it wasn't the best player on any of those teams outside of his prime by the time that came around. You may think David Robinson off the eye test is better.
I think when you really look down into it, there's a lot of things that stand out to you. So okay, you look past that gold curtain, you see that mess back there. It's like, all right,
yeah,
you see what really
it's like for a 10-year stretch. If I just do quick math, he probably averaged around 20, 25, 26 points with probably like 13 rebounds.
Yeah,
13, 14. That's crazy in a 10-year stretch as a center.
Yeah,
that's crazy. But
I wouldn't be mad if he. I mean, it'll be tough, but I wouldn't be mad if especially from a career standpoint. He's from a career standpoint. I think he's got one of the 5 most impressive careers for any big man in the history of the game.
Sure.
Yeah,
I would definitely say with that longevity, and then there were the ABA years before that where he was dominant.
Hey, fun fact. I want to ask y'all something. What local team did he play for?
He played for the St. Louis somebody.
It wasn't the Hawks. It was the Hawks? Was it Spirits?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, okay. He definitely was playing at St. Louis.
Yep.
Yeah. Spirits. I got to give me I'll be seeing people wear Spirit jerseys.
People do rock the Spirits jersey around STL.
Spirits and Hawks.
Yeah.
Ain't another team to rush.
Yeah. But no, like I said, I think when you like unravel David Robinson's career, it was a great one and it was dominant. I'm not taking anything away from what he did, but short prime. And I think that's why he gets left out from a skill standpoint. He's one of those guys again, he had 2 championships and an MVP, but from a skill standpoint, when you look at his game, you're like, oh man, why isn't this guy considered top 5 ever? Then you kind of unravel some of the situations. Injuries did derail him, but his peak year, he got outshined by another player in his peak year. Yeah. His peak year is 95 and he got embarrassed that same year.
He did, but I will say probably the only center in league history that has put up an historic 70-point game like him is obviously Wilt. So that was impressive. I'll give David Robinson that. He put up a 70-point game and he had a quadruple double. So that's very impressive. But I'm going to pick Moses.
Yeah, for sure. So Moses Malone advances here on the list. I don't think we would have this morning when we decided that we were going to go with this. I don't think we would have anticipated saying Moses Malone was going to be better.
Yeah, no.
You know,
we wouldn't have.
Let's go with Hakeem and Shaq.
Okay.
This is one I liked a lot because unlike a couple of the matchups we've already seen, we did see these 2 guys go head to head. So Hakeem wins the head to head matchups, right? We all knew you guys kind of talked about Shaq from a physical standpoint. All that was great, but we did see some of that. It didn't mean anything with guarding a skilled guy like Hakeem, which brings you to kind of a little bit of a question about Shaq. How good defensively? He was never this super dominant defensive presence. Yeah. So, like, how much does he stand out in the league today? How much court time does he get now that teams are putting so much pressure, so much, not court time, but how much impact does he truly have now that teams are putting so much value on having these really high impact defensive big men?
That's the thing. Even Shaq can tell you to this day he was never a defensive player. So even he acknowledged that. But it's so many players on this list that you can ask that question with a lot of. You can ask that question with some of your favorite players of all time.
Most
last in today's league with So that's a question you can ask just damn near about anybody, and we'll never know the answer to it. We can just take an educated guess. But I think he'll probably, to answer your question, he'll definitely probably have some troubles in today's league.
Yeah. And we see guys I don't want to get into what would happen if Shaq was in the league today and everything, but if we go into that Hakeem and Shaq debate, Hakeem does have the head-to-heads, right? Shaq's got him from a ring standpoint, but
you got to look at head-to-head wise when they actually played each other. Who's the better player?
Yeah,
most of the time it was Hakeem.
Yeah, and then there's also this really impressive thing. I think we talked about how impressive Moses Malone's finals run was in '83. Back-to-back years, we saw Hakeem in one run, so 95, right? Not only do you take out the MVP and David Robinson in that Western Conference Finals, you come back in the East Finals, or excuse me, in the NBA Finals, and then you knock out Shaq, who at that time I think was second in MVP voting that year.
That's true, but
and then you come back to the next one. Who do you be the next championship? What big man do you knock out the next title?
Who was it?
Patrick Ewing.
Ewing, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was about to say though. Yeah, I was about to say though to make an argument.
Yeah, 3 top 3 big men or guys who could have been at that time considered better than him. They weren't, but they could have been considered better than him. Back-to-back finals years, knocked both of them out in big games. Obviously, playoffs and finals combined.
Yep.
Yeah. If this means anything, Shaq did beat Michael Jordan when he, in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay.
Before getting to Hakeem, I'm just saying that's very impressive. A lot of people can't even say that. Let's be real.
Yeah. I think what the Hakeem thing is the matchup thing. Like I think for him to go head to head against these guys, but again, how much they lost. I was going to give Jordan the excuse when they lost that year in '95, and I can give him an excuse.
I can't. He came back. He looked like Michael Jordan.
We can give him it. No,
he looked like Michael Jordan to me. He was hanging through the air. He was doing everything. It was
he dropped 55.
That's what I'm saying.
We're not going to get into this, bro.
Yeah.
No, but that's because when I was like looking up on history and everything, this is like probably like a couple years ago, I was like, dang, Michael Jordan lost the Eastern Conference Finals in the 90s. Like I had no idea because people make it seem like he never lost a game in his life sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's neither here or there. But I was like, damn, he got beat.
Yeah.
That's impressive. A lot of people can't say they actually beat Michael Jordan in his prime in the playoffs in the 90s.
Yeah.
Basically nobody can, let's be honest.
Yeah. Shaq. So I think the argument between Hakeem and Shaq, the reason I run with Hakeem, and y'all can let me know because I know Shaq. I mean, I know Carl. I know how you feel about Shaq, Blake, same way. I think what's so impressive about Hakeem, everything for him just came together so well. This is a guy who didn't really start playing basketball. Yeah, think about this. This is a guy who didn't start playing basketball until college, right? And so, like a lot of his contemporaries, a lot of other guys in the all-time big man conversation were like, yeah, they were high school, like almost lifelong ball players. Hakeem didn't start playing a game until college. So you start playing a game in college. And then you end your career as the most skilled player at your position ever. You're like the standard for what Hakeem Olajuwon to me is still the standard for what big men want to be. You know what I mean? Like to me, that's kind of how I look at him. So what he did from his college years up to the end of his career, maybe he doesn't have as many rings as Shaq or whatever the case may be, but what he did to be a guy who was an amateur at the game of basketball on the college level to end the game as the most skilled player at your position. There was a time where everybody was working out with Hakeem, like in the 2010s. That's
still do.
I think, that's sports history to me.
Yeah, but that's not even a crazy thing. As a young player, he went to the finals in the 80s. Obviously, he lost.
He did. He did make a
run. Who did he lose to? The
Celtics. Yep.
Yeah, but that's impressive. As a young player, he went to the finals also.
Yeah.
He didn't win, but I know the right person who asked this question would be Kenny Smith for sure.
Yeah.
He's the right person. I don't know what he would say.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting, but
then we had Shaq too. Like, and you mentioned like Hakeem making this forgotten finals run before he actually won his ring. Shaq did it too. Like we just said, him going to the finals, with Orlando, and then comes back a few years later, and then ends up winning, 3 in a row, and then goes and wins a 4th one all in the early 2000s. So you do have that, but I just think if you combine everything with Hakeem from an individual player standpoint, skill standpoint, what he did defensively, being the best defensive big man, one of the 5 best defensive players ever, in my opinion, and the rings and who he matched up with, going head to head against those players at his position, I would say Hakeem. But there's still a big argument for Shaq here, given how many championships he won and everything.
Shaq did used to ragdoll some of the like greatest centers ever though too. He didn't ragdoll Hakeem, obviously. He used to ragdoll David.
Like when we had the Dwight conversation, that goes back to that athleticism.
Yeah,
you've never seen nothing like Shaq before.
Yeah, 300 pounds, muscle, can move like a guard. That was like he has highlights to where he was actually dribbling the ball running the point guard, running the floor. That's crazy. But yeah, he used to ragdoll David Robinson. I mentioned that earlier. So it's who do I want to pick?
It's tough because you're going 4 rings against 2.
That's what I'm saying.
Pretty much, yeah.
But Hakeem's career was so impressive. That's what makes
you gotta look at. I guess you gotta look at context behind that too.
Yeah, and some of Hakeem's stats were probably more impressive.
Yeah, it just depends. What do you value most? Do you value most a better career? Do you value most skill set? Do you value the totality of it? Because if you're talking about skill set and like championships, you could probably give the nod to Hakeem because even though he has less rings, he has more of a skill set, so he can probably win the overall debate. But
what was Hakeem Olajuwon's peak better than Shaq's peak?
Nah, I don't think it was. That's the trouble I have because Shaq was literally averaging 30 points and just dunking on people.
I think during Shaq's peak, especially those early Lakers years, that was his peak. It wasn't nobody touching him, and I can't really compare that to.
Hakeem was getting busy though.
Yeah, because Hakeem was proving himself with other great, like the 90s was probably the best era for a big man. Hakeem proved himself better than he matched up against like that 95 one. You match up against the MVP of the league and the guy second MVP voting, all centers, you outdueled him and you come right back and beat another top 3 center or top 5 center in Patrick Ewing the next year. And that's at your peak. So was Hakeem's 95, 90, or was it 94? Those 2 years he won those titles, were those better than Shaq's 2 best years?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I can even say 3 best years because he obviously won all 3 finals MVPs in a row too. So those 3 years, yeah. Those 3 years was no, I can't say it.
What if I bring back the Dwight argument? and I say comp because I'm putting a lot of weight on comp, right? I'm just saying, have you ever seen a guy at his position dominate the players at that same position back-to-back years like that?
Okay, so you said he dominated Patrick Ewing.
Not his position.
Yeah. You said Hakeem, you went against Patrick Ewing. He dominated Shaq. Yeah. Shaq, who did Shaq really dominate?
Honestly, I mean, if you really want to think about it, Shaq was dominating those dudes too. He just don't got the rings to show for it.
He did have his moments in the playoffs earlier in the middle of the 90s.
He was bullying dudes.
He just didn't bully Hakeem.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
So if you really want to think about it, they was both bullying dudes, but Hakeem the only one that got the rings to show for us. So it's kind of tough to put those together because they was both Debo, if that makes sense.
He said Debo.
Hakeem, out of those guys, every guy we just mentioned, Hakeem's the only one who can say they ain't got by anybody on that list. We said Patrick Ewing, Shaq, David Robinson.
Shaq got by Hakeem. So
that's what I'm saying. Hakeem didn't get got by nobody on that list.
You did Shaq except for Hakeem.
That's what I'm saying.
They didn't really. I was about to say, did he get got by Kareem because he did play in the early '80s, but they didn't really face each other.
So, nah, he definitely got Kareem kind of on. I mean, they had a couple of matchups, but it wasn't like
not enough to kind of talk about.
Yeah.
Damn, you bring up this is hard. I'm be honest.
Yeah,
I'm gonna pick Shaq.
Yeah, it's tough. You going Shaq? Oh man, I guess I lose the vote. It's tough though, because you are going 4 rings against 2. But Hakeem's career he's done so much. He was so impressive that what he did over his career couldn't really be defined by the championships, even though he had them. What he just did it was so impressive. It's just tough.
Yeah.
Damn.
Even though he has 4 rings to his 2, it's a totality. It just depends how you really look at it. Like that 3-peat to me and how dominant he was. If you just look at the stats and look at everything, even though people would debate that what was the 3rd ring that was kind of sketchy against when he won the Western Conference Finals against the Kings.
That rigged ring.
Yeah, but he still won. He was a 3-peat. He was Finals MVP 3 straight years, and he was just. And Ty, like you said, his competition was definitely not as great as Hakeem in the middle '90s. So it's. Yeah. I'm not mad at you picking Hakeem. You can honestly go either way, but I'm gonna stick with Shaq.
Yeah, and not saying Shaq didn't have Shaq had comp, but like I said, I don't think what he did with his comp was. I don't think what any big men did relative to what they to the guys they were going against at their position was better than what Hakeem did. Moses Malone is up there too for what he did against Kareem, right? But it's just tough. We'll go with y'all can go with Shaq. Y'all go pick Shaq, but to me, it's tough though because it is 4 rings against 2. You know what I mean? I will say this though. What if I brought one more argument to the table? Hakeem didn't have a top 75 player when he won 2 rings. So Hakeem beat.
Wait, hold on. Drexler got there in.
Okay, Drexler was like on the. He got there for the 2nd ring, but Drexler wasn't like prime Drexler. It wasn't prime Drexler. It'd be different if it was like.
That's Blake's favorite boy. He loved Clyde the Glide.
Yeah, it'd be different if it was like prime Drexler. Like it'd be totally different if it was like, you know what I mean, Drexler coming over there in his prime.
I ain't gonna lie. I know he played with him later in his prime and he didn't win, but didn't he play with Charles Barkley?
Yeah, but they didn't win though.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that's just people forget about that. It did happen. You can say they're old or whatever, but it did happen.
That was like Karl Malone and Gary Payton joining Shaq in 2004. Okay. That's like them joining. That's like them joining the 3-peat. Yeah. So
I let it slide.
So if I bring that to the table, if I say that I saw Hakeem beat out 3 top 75 players in his 2-year span with no top 75 player on his team, right? While I saw Shaq,
let's not. All right, hold on.
They were all in this position too.
Okay, but let's not make it seem like that Houston team was so bad. Well, not so bad.
No.
That was still a very well-rounded Houston team.
No, they weren't bad at all. But
let's be honest, the biggest thing we're not talking about in the room, Michael Jordan, he was retired those couple years. We can say all we want to. We can say, okay, I think Houston would have gotten there, but we don't know. That's I'm just putting that out there.
So if that's the case,
a certain guy named Robert Horry.
So if that's the case, not top 10 player. If that's the case, then why even bring the Michael Jordan thing up? If we can't say,
damn it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
you're right.
So like I said, I'm gonna keep pushing for Hakeem. Top set, we saw him like the Rock. I ain't gonna take nothing from that Rockets team. They were a very well put together team. They played great basketball. I'm not taking anything away from them. It was kind of like they're a great team. They're a classic all-time team. But outside of Hakeem, let's just be honest, the gap between him and those other guys was large. If Hakeem leaves that series or if Hakeem fouls out the game, how competitive are they? Versus we've seen Shaq not be available for the Lakers, and we did see Kobe take over. They were talking about Kobe Bryant. So Hakeem, I saw him beat 3 top 75 players all at his position and outduel all 3 of them, embarrass all 3 of them. Like these guys got embarrassed by him.
He's trying to change our mind, Blake.
You just think about it. No top 75 player.
I'm gonna pick Shaq. I get what you're saying though.
Y'all
want to have a top 75 player.
Yeah, I don't know. No top 75 player.
But it's different. But okay, was 94 through 95? Was it a different period of type of basketball to 2001?
No,
I think it was still
same style.
Yeah, exact same style. Maybe a couple of different like rules, but it was the same style of basketball.
I mean, but they didn't know Kobe was gonna become Kobe though. So
but he was still Kobe.
He was, but when he got there, he was. When Kobe got drafted, he wasn't Kobe yet. So Shaq did build with Kobe.
Yeah, but just cause Kobe was still a dominant. Kobe was still a top 10 player. Just because he built with him don't mean he didn't have another top 10 player on his team.
Yeah, he was probably top 10 around.
For probably those last 2. I think that first one, I don't think people really.
Yeah, he arrived, like you said. He arrived.
He arrived.
That's the crazy thing. That's the crazy thing, though. Kobe arguably
he arrived in like 01.
Yeah.
2000 year right around. That's the crazy thing, though. Kobe was literally averaging the same amount of points as Shaq. He easily could have won 3 Finals MVPs too. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
God damn it.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
don't let him persuade you, Carl.
I got you, Blake. Nope. No.
Okay, who was finals? Wasn't he in the Finals MVP in the 4th ring though with Miami? Was that D Wade?
That was D Wade.
Oh God. Okay, hold on. So y'all just said hold on. So y'all are telling me.
Hey, that's different. Oh no.
Talk about this one, bro.
You're telling me. So let's just break this down. Hakeem beat 3 top 75 players all at his position and embarrassed all 3 of those guys and didn't have a top 75 player on his team, not taking anything away from Houston, while Shaq was the best player in basketball, but had arguably a young version of Kobe who ends up becoming one of the best players in history of the game of basketball, who ends up surpassing him all time.
Was Shaq wasn't? I don't think Shaq was in his prime yet. Though I'm trying to find something. I don't know. No, I'm talking about when Hakeem beat him.
Oh, I mean that don't mean. I mean still.
I was going to say this. Do you think Hakeem would have beat him in 2001?
Hakeem was old.
No, I'm saying like hypothetically, if he was.
There's no era of Shaq that can handle Hakeem Olajuwon.
I don't know.
Era that
prime Hakeem Olajuwon could not be touched. Remember, we just said it. Shaq never was a dominant defensive player. He knows that. So how can he beat prime? If we put Hakeem Olajuwon in 2001 or 2002 or 2003, Shaq
prime Hakeem.
You gotta outshoot him, bro. And I think Shaq can do that, man. I take that 2002 Shaq over.
Because y'all said Shaq was never a good defender.
I mean, yeah, but prime Shaq, because when
I don't think Hakeem could handle prime Shaq, bro.
When Hakeem faced Shaq, he wasn't in his prime. That wasn't prime Shaq. It was close, but it wasn't prime Shaq.
That was a very young Shaq.
Prime Shaq, honestly, even though his competition was his
year in the league, wasn't it?
That's impressive. Yeah. That's really impressive. And if he was that far along, but that's the thing. And then Hakeem made a finals appearance early in the 80s, and he lost. It's weird how that worked out. But prime Shaq versus prime Hakeem. Yeah, I don't think you handle him, Ty. And I understand the competition thing, because that's the weird thing about Shaq. He did play against some of the best centers in the league in the 90s, obviously, but then as everybody started fading away and kind of getting older, he didn't see that same competition when he was putting up those dominant numbers. So that's why I'm not going to say you don't have a point, especially with the competition thing in 2000 and 01 and 02 and everything. But I can't see Hakeem handling him.
No, I can't either.
His prime Shaq.
Let me ask you a question. Could Shaq? This is a very obvious answer. Could Shaq handle Nikola Jokic defensively?
Yeah. Oh no,
not at all. Anthony Davis can't even handle him, and Anthony Davis.
But it's vice versa though. Like I can say the same thing the other way around. So like, does that cancel out?
Nope. Hakeem could play Shaq out the game. Shaq can't play Hakeem out the game.
You think Hakeem? You think Prime Hakeem could play Shaq?
Without a doubt, Shaq knew he could never keep up. Hakeem wasn't the guys, his contemporaries. He was never more physically dominant than any of them. Hakeem's game was based off his footwork. Shaq from a footwork standpoint defensively, that he could block shots, but Shaq's ground game defensively couldn't handle that Hakeem Olajuwon. He knew that.
I think I honestly, bro, really look at it, I don't think they could have handled each other defensively either way.
Hakeem, I don't think so either. That dude was ragdolling people.
Nah, bro. No, dude. I don't think
Hakeem. Okay. This is the thing about Shaq.
2000 to 2003 Shaq. No, he's not handling it.
Because this is the thing. Real quick. This is the thing also. Shaq was way heavier than he was from 95 to 2000. In 2000, I don't want to say if you want to say he gained weight, gained muscle, but he was way heavier. That's why I don't think he could do nothing with him. Shaq in 95 was skinny and slender.
Let me make
2000, this dude was like a tank.
Let me say two things. Him getting bigger makes him worse defensively against Hakeem.
Oh no, I'm not saying.
We talking about offensively.
We just talking about if Hakeem can handle him.
Right, we're talking about matchups. So if you match these two guys out, right? Who do you think staying in that game all 4 quarters?
Probably Hakeem.
Because Hakeem would have Shaq. Yeah, Shaq himself would tell you he couldn't match. Hakeem he was so skilled. If Shaq got heavier, there was no way he could have hung with Hakeem Olajuwon. God damn it, he couldn't even do when he was lighter.
But he make him tough. Not gonna lie,
bro. No.
I'm just saying, like if
y'all pick a Shaq, we pick a Shaq.
I'm still taking Shaq.
I mean, y'all ain't tripping, but how y'all look over that?
I regret it. I definitely regret it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I just couldn't go back. I can't go back on my point. I said Shaq. I don't.
Yeah, I mean it is 4-2, so it's not crazy. So
yeah.
This next one, Wilt and Kareem.
This is kind of interesting.
It is interesting. I don't know. I think there's no player. I think the argument for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar that a lot of people, because there's a reason why a lot of people still consider him one of the greatest player of all time. Like when people say it, I'm not like y'all are tripping for saying that. Like
who says it?
Older guys, there's still a lot of none of our generation.
Not even 30. I don't think 30-year-olds say it.
But there are a lot of older guys who would argue Kareem. Like I've heard people say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then before Jordan comes in, people thought he was, and that's an argument. When people say it, that's an argument that's not crazy, because if you look at Kareem's like aggregate career as a basketball player, it's one of the best careers anybody could ever have in a sport. He dominated college, right? And then you end that also as the all-time leading scorer. Obviously, LeBron surpassed that record, multiple-time champion, number one player in the game. He hated it too. But what he did from college up to the end of his career was one of the best things anybody could have done in any sport. Yeah. You know what I mean? Even through high school.
He only lost one championship, basically, right?
Mm-hmm. I'd have to go back and see how many he lost, but you win way more than you've seen the top more than you've lost. You know what I'm saying?
I say his winning percentage in big games as far as championships, I say it's probably close to 90%. I just say it to you like that.
Yeah, so, and there's that comp argument. Like I don't want to act like Wilt had no comp, because him and Bill Russell did have
100 points.
Yeah, he had 100, and him and Bill Russell did have ridiculous. Like they had their battles with one another. It'd be different if there was no other competitive center in Wilt's time, but you know what I mean. Him and Bill did have their battles, but I think over the course of Kareem's career, from an aggregate standpoint, I think he did a lot more than Wilt Chamberlain, and that's taking nothing away from Wilt.
Yeah, Wilt averaged 50 in one season and 62. That was a long.
It's just hard, bro, because you look at when you talk about comp, you look at the dudes who Wilt was playing against, bro. It's just hard to really put him in some of those conversations, because the league. I remember reading somewhere like the league average in height was like 6'4", 6'5" around that time.
Yeah, and Bill Russell was literally.
Yeah,
Bill Russell was literally his only competition. When I say only, he was literally his only competition. Nobody but them two was that tall in the league, basically. So
it's tough.
That's one person I wish I can see in like the modern NBA. I wish badly, Because if you look at his highlights, he was shooting fadeaways. That's the weird thing. He was literally shooting fadeaway, like hook shots and jump shots, like from 15 and 20 feet.
You know what I think?
What?
You know what I think? I think that the comment we talk, and this is nothing, but I think when a lot of times we have these conversations about what guys would do now, I think what people kind of go to a lot is offense and what they can do from a shooting standpoint. I think it all comes down to defense. My thing is, if you can't guard multiple spots and you can't, and I'm not saying Wilt couldn't, but if you can't guard multiple positions or if you can't go out there and switch, everything you're doing on offense, unless you're like a straight up lights out player, is kind of like null and void. You know what I'm saying? That's why Shaq, if he played today, would still be great, but there will be a lot of limitations, because of so the question for Wilt and Bill was, they dominated their eras offensively as well. But if they came in the game today, no matter what they did offensively from a skill standpoint, and Wilt was very skilled, would he stay on the floor? Would his defense hold up? That's the whole thing. We don't even have clips on that, so we can't even see it. But that's the entire question I be having about guys when it comes to bringing them from that era to this era, is just, can they play defense? Because in the fourth quarter, you ain't playing if you can't guard.
It's hard when you compare those two. I mean, when you go back all the way back to that era, because it's not a lot of what you're not seeing a lot.
Yeah,
you just basing it off of old folklore.
Yeah,
yeah.
It might hold up, because this was a dude that did average like 20, almost 30 rebounds in the season one. So that's part of defense technically, if you want to be technical with rebounds.
I mean, look at the dudes he was like getting these rebounds.
Yeah, we all know what they look like. I'm not going to say it, but we all know.
Yeah. And Kareem,
I'm going to pick Kareem.
I got to go Kareem just off the strength, man.
Yeah. And he played
modern. Yeah, he played the modern. He played more towards the modern NBA. Like 62 is so far away.
Yeah.
62, 63.
But,
like
him and I want to know something crazy. Him and Will weren't that far off. Kareem,
they weren't.
Kareem started in what, 70? So they played against each other.
No, they played against each other. He played. Kareem played basically. He was coming into the league right when Wilt was on his way down.
I think Wilt retired in like 74. Kareem came in the league in 71.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kareem's second year also, I mean, he comes in his second season and wins a title and gets an MVP and wins finals MVP.
Yep.
Right. So like I said, from a complete standpoint, when you look at what he did through the 70s and the 80s, and like I said, when you start throwing in some of the guys he was matching up against, Robert Parrish, who's a dynasty big guy, right? Moses Malone, who we just talked about. You know what I'm saying? Like, he played those guys and still dominated those eras. And obviously, like I said, there were moments where those guys kind of had their way against him. I just mentioned Moses Malone and what he did and why that was so impressive. But I think Kareem's going to edge out Wilt because of the comp. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to be the guys who are like, oh, he didn't do shit because he played. But
it's just hard, dude.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. I'm always going to look at the comp. That's one of my biggest. What do you notice here? Two big things is comp, right?
Comp. Yeah,
that's gonna be the biggest thing.
Competition. Yep, but Kareem gets the win.
Kareem gets
I'm not gonna say easily, but he gets it.
Kind of almost by default, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's get to this one, and this is the interesting one because we just had this conversation a couple of weeks back. Nikola Jokic and Dwight Howard. Yes. Right. Remember, Dwight comes out and he says, look at what I did. It was, I'm better. I mean, here's the thing. Dwight Howard has a right to think he's better than Nikola Jokic. He has a right to think that. For a guy who did, I don't think he is, but for a guy who was a top 3 player at his time, he's not ridiculous for saying I'm better than Nikola Jokic. So when people act like it was the dumbest thing in the world for him to say that, look at what Dwight did during his best years. As I said, the comp wasn't as great, but at his position, but this still was a top 3 player in the game of basketball who made a conference finals appearance and made an NBA finals appearance as well. So he's not crazy for saying that.
Yeah.
He's not crazy. It's kind of where things get different when you talk about, first we talk about resume. He is a 3-time MVP. Just won his first championship, multi-time All-Star, multi-time first team All-NBA. Probably at this point is being considered the best player in the NBA for the last 2-3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I
think this year. This year. Yeah, and he won 2. He got 2 rings, not 3. But that's the. I mean, he got 2 MVPs, not rings. But he got 2 MVPs, regular season MVPs, not 3. But Dwight Dwight Howard did win 3 Defensive Player of the Years in a row.
Yeah,
that's never like.
Yeah.
But so he has like Ty said, he has like some of the awards to back up what he says if he really believes that. I don't believe it, but it's not crazy that he said it.
Blake, you brought up a good point too about Jokic being the best player in the game. Was there ever that like I said, when we talk about guys' peaks, was there ever a point where Dwight Howard was considered the best player in the game? Answer is no. You know what I'm saying?
It was
I think just based off of that, I would pick Jokic.
And it's simply just because of players like Kobe, LeBron, and D Wade that was in his way. That's and you can. Even still, obviously LeBron's not in his prime now, but people still today you still got players like Giannis, Steph. So it's still he has a lot of competition. He has some comp.
A lot more talent spread out amongst the league now.
Yeah. I think also too, and Dwight Howard did have very meaningful playoff runs. What he did in 2009 was super impressive. Now he didn't win it, so when we think about how impressive this Nuggets run was, they did turn it into a championship, which is great. But what Dwight Howard and that Miami or the Orlando Magic team did in 2009 was super impressive because I think they took out the top 2 seeds in their conference. You were the 3rd seed and you took out the top 2. It took out Boston, right? Who was the defending champion at that point. And then the next time, and then they also took out, I think that Cavs team as well.
Yeah.
So
they ruined it, bro. We could have had a Kobe versus LeBron. That could have settled a lot of the arguments everybody be having. Is it Kobe or LeBron? But you can continue.
I think the Lakers would have handily won that.
Yeah, but that's where the argument for Dwight really comes in. Is if we look at both of those guys in their peaks, both of those guys had amazing playoff runs. You know what I'm saying? Like for him to do that in one, like I'm not saying just gonna say him, but for Orlando to do that in one run. It's impressive, and it's almost impressive what Denver was able to do. Denver was able to cap it off with a championship. But you look at, like I said, Jokic's best season, which is arguably probably this year, since he brought it all to, he brings it all to a title, compared to Dwight Howard's best year, which is 2009. The only separating factor is the point that Joker was able to put a ring on it. And Dwight wasn't. And even when he got there, Dwight didn't get blown out the water by that Lakers team. I think they won the first 2 games. So they struck first. They just lost the series. But for who they beat out to take out the defending champs, and then, it was in the top. I think it was super impressive.
Let me see. I think they lost the series in 5 games, actually. Let me see.
Yep, they lost.
They were close. They were close games, though. So not like he just got dominated. But yeah, I like I said, I understand why Dwight would feel that way. He has the right to. He has the accolades for it. Obviously 3-time Defensive Player of the Year in a row, finals appearance, beat LeBron, beat that Boston Celtics team with KG, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce. So it's an impressive resume, especially in his prime, but I'm still picking Joker, like you all are. So Joker wins.
And then there's a future thing too with Joker. Like, what does he do? Like, we'll see how he goes from here. How much more does he have? Because I think obviously Shaq's or Dwight's career is over, I think. His run was done after that last season in Orlando. You know what I mean? So, 2013, everything kind of goes downhill. He had a couple of decent seasons with Houston, but after that, nothing was ever the same. So there's that. But Dwight's run, if you look at what he did in his best season, is something to be looked at and something to be talked about because it was extremely impressive.
This is a question, though. Do you think necessarily, because he did have a lot of back, neck, and knee injuries, do you think if those injuries didn't accumulate, he would kind of be in his prime a little bit longer? Because that's what people don't talk about. He was playing through injuries in his prime with Orlando Magic. That's probably what caused his prime to be very short, honestly.
It depends. I mean, that Lakers team in 2013 was so riddled by injuries, but they were looking like they were kind of figuring out towards the end of the season. It came down to injuries for them. And it's what it came down to. Also, there was a thing about how much could Dwight's game evolve with the way the game is now.
That was the thing. If he was in the early 2000s and his game kind of went on to 2010, but he got drafted like 07 or whatever the case may be, 06. 06 either.
Oh, no,
05. I think it was 2005. But since he got drafted right in the middle of 2000, I think his prime didn't last so long. Like the good point you made, the game was starting to evolve. Like you were starting to see some taller players shoot like threes on more of a consistent basis towards like the middle 2010s. So shoot threes, shoot twos, and people adjusting defenses. So if you didn't really know how to shoot, they would kind of just lay off you and play a certain defense.
like I said, for me, I think Dwight's game, if he didn't get hurt as much, Dwight could have continued to play at a high level. It just would have, to me, it's always going to come down to the defense, because I feel like with fans, the easiest thing to flock and say about Dwight is, oh, his game, offensive game didn't really evolve, but I think there could have been a really good role for him, around like, I mean, he still won a ring. Like he still won. I can't even say it because he still won a championship and was still a big. He was still, but he's still a big rotation player for that team. So we got glimpses of it. It would have come down to his defense, and that's kind of why he was there with LA when they won that championship.
Yeah. He does have a slam dunk. I'm just playing. That don't matter.
Yeah.
People put it. Imagine you just you trying to debate who's better. You put, oh no, but he won a slam dunk contest, so that means he better. That's funny.
Yeah.
We got Joker winning that matchup easily. So the next one is obviously going to be Moses Malone versus Bill Russell.
Now we're talking 11 rings versus.
Let me say this: 11 rings is ridiculous.
Tyler, we got to bring up your favorite word, comp.
Yeah, there's comp, but also 11 rings. 11 rings. Yeah.
11, but there was only like 8 teams. There were only 8 teams in the league. Like it wasn't a lot of teams, and it probably was less than that actually.
Compared to
for you to win, and for you to win 11 rings, people have to be terrible.
I mean, it helps having two more of the greatest players of all time.
Yeah, that's tough, man. 11 rings to 1 is a lot, but at the same time, the comp was just bad. I've used comp to help guys. This is where comp kind of is going to lower you a bit. I'm not taking anything away from Bill Russell, from what he was for the game, from, just a message standpoint and everything.
RP.
And then, RP, the 11 rings is something we're never going to see ever again. Like, I think that's the unattainable record. Like we talk about, I think 100 points can happen again. I think we'll see.
I think Pat McCall got a chance to catch him.
Yeah, true. I think we'll see 100 points before we see somebody get 11 rings. Straight up. I mean, I think that's the 11 rings to me is the standard high score. You know what I mean? But if we look, and it's impossible because it pretty much is impossible, because he was, like Carl said, it was done at a time where the comp was was not there. And then we're comparing it to Moses Malone, who, like I said, people are going to look at us say Moses Malone or Bill Russell like we're crazy if we're going to go with that. But Moses Malone, what he did from a 10-year span was very impressive from an individual standpoint, especially. It's tough. I may go Bill because, like I said, he did. The comp was crazy, but
I can't do it. That competition was
bro. I gotta go with Moses. That competition
bad.
Was
yeah, it was genuine. He was the only person that was near 7 foot tall. So if you're going to make that argument, let's be fair. If you're going to make that argument for Kareem being better than Wilt because of his competition, Bill Russell and him basically played in the same competition.
But what if I said him and Wilt Chamberlain were the two best players there in each other at the game, and then they went at they went at it.
They went at it, but
that's only 2 dudes.
But again, those are those head-to-head matchups.
That's still 2 dudes.
They went at it, but I would say Bill Russell team was.
Bill Russell team was significantly better.
Way better.
Is that true?
Yeah, it was.
Let's go. So who's on?
They got Hall of Fame. They got Hall of Famers.
So Wilt didn't have any Hall of Famers?
He did, but not as much.
I don't think on his team, though.
I don't think nowhere near as much as the Celtics did.
Along with him, Bill Russell had 2 Hall of Famers.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Let
me see, Hall of Famers.
Elgin Baylor, and Jerry West.
Okay,
on the Lakers.
That's on the back end of his career.
I was talking about when he was really with the Warriors.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is Bill. Like we talked about,
Bill had 2 more. Bill had Bob Cousy and Sam Jones.
But I'm saying Bill. It's not like Bill didn't match up against Wilt.
Yeah, we going way back. That's a good point. This is 60s
to the point where we don't really even know. We're talking.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know the comp was crazy, but I'm not going to act like there wasn't a dude who scored 100 that didn't play in Bill Russell's era. Right.
I'm gonna pick Moses. I'm still gonna pick Moses.
Yeah,
I'll go. Y'all can
that
go.
11 rings, bro, is just in like it's a great thing that he won 11 rings, but he didn't. It's not like I don't get what you're saying with the Wilt thing. He didn't face Wilt every time in the finals. Like them were some probably lopsided finals matchups. He didn't play Wilt every year.
How y'all going? Okay, here's my thing. Y'all go. So I get the Bill Russell thing, but the Hakeem, we literally saw Hakeem outdo the dude y'all say is better than him, and y'all still picked him.
Different circumstances.
How?
Much different circumstances.
So yeah, there was literally no argument y'all had left for Shaq and Hakeem, but y'all just still pick Shaq.
I'm not saying it's crazy, but 11 rings it's different because it's the 60s and it's not the 80s and 90s, which competition was what you can say Shaq didn't have competition all you want to, but that competition that he didn't have was still better than what Bill Russell did.
Yeah,
that's just real.
I want to revisit this Hakeem and Shaq thing. We'll do Bill Russell.
No,
that one
done.
Y'all are crazy for that one. Y'all acknowledge that y'all ain't had nothing back and y'all just took them.
Yes.
That's crazy. I go Moses because it was tough because, like I said, it'll always sound crazy to go 11-1, but at that time, like I said, there just wasn't much there. But again, we did see Bill and Wilt Chamberlain go head to head, and they did match up, and we did see Bill win those head to head matchups when they did do it. But from an aggregate standpoint, Bill did more. So
if championships mean everything, everybody would have Bill Russell as their GOAT, and we all know they don't.
Which is true.
Don't actually.
Which is true.
So other people see what we see too.
Yeah.
I respect everything. Like I said, I respect everything he did for the game, but that competition bothers me a lot. Like if this was the 70s, maybe I'll give him a chance. But he did it right when basketball, especially the NBA, was really getting popular.
Mm-hmm.
And just people, you had people that had their secondary job, like they were plumbers and just people that came off the street. I'm like dead serious.
Mailmen and
HVAC. Play basketball in the evening, was mailman at night, like or milkman. I don't know. Yeah. I'm dead serious, so I'm not making it up.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have to pick. Ty, you said you pick Moses.
Yeah.
I'll go. I'm gonna pick Bill for 11, but you can go Moses.
Okay. We're gonna pick Moses.
Y'all are tripping on that Hakeem. Oh my god, I ain't gonna let you end that shit. Nikola Jokic and Shaq.
Ooh.
That's Shaq.
Nikola Jokic and Shaq.
Yeah, I don't think there's much of an argument there.
Maybe Nikola wins. I don't think people be like, I think they go. I don't know why every time somebody wins a championship, they be like they go win another one back to back. I don't think so.
Yeah,
role players playing out of their mind. They really made me mad. But nah, I got Shaq too.
Yeah.
Until Joker wins, like I guess three.
Yeah, it'll
think about it then.
Yeah, it'll have to. I don't think. Here's a hot take too. I don't think Joker's gonna win another one in a minute. I think losing Bruce Brown was big. Like I think losing Bruce Brown was.
He's the player I'm talking about that was playing out of body.
Yeah, I mean they were playing.
Crazy.
Nah, I ain't gonna lie. I expected that out of the Nuggets.
Nah, he was playing them. They ain't play like that on any other teams.
Yes,
and
bro.
I can credit that for Joker. So I'm gonna give you that because Joker makes a lot of them happy. Like he made Aaron Gordon look like yeah. He made. But
also Miami couldn't guard him.
They couldn't. Yeah, I get that, but I'm just saying like they look like that against the Lakers too.
That I'm not because you said this a couple of times. I'm not gonna lie. With Denver, that was coming because
they're gonna have to do it next year for me to really.
Which they're not because that Bruce Brown loss was big. Like that losing Bruce Brown was big.
I'm gonna call it right now. Watch you go to Indiana. He's not gonna have the same great season. Watch, book it.
Yeah. Yeah. He's probably not even gonna start for them.
So
yeah, I mean,
I can't credit Joker for that because his pinpoint passing has a lot to do with them knocking down some of them threes when you
because they were getting wide open look. Like it wasn't like they was making
it was, but I'm just saying like KCP who can shoot, I like KCP, but like some of them dudes was hitting shots I've never seen them hit it like their career.
Which one?
I'm just being honest.
Which ones?
It was Bruce Brown. It was a couple with hands in his face. Not all of them was wide open. He was hitting. Even Caldwell Pope could miss at one point. Like he used to pit. I'm gonna just be honest because he used to be on the Lakers.
I knew that's why he was going. I knew that's why he was going.
No, listen. Caldwell Pope used to piss me off. He used to have a lot of wide open jumpers. He didn't hit them. Well, all of a sudden, why you got to hit him now?
KCP is a top 10 shooter in the NBA right now.
Now he is. I'm saying when he was with the Lakers, we all used to talk about this. He has a good jump shot, but it never goes in. Remember we used to say that?
I mean, that may have been with the Lakers, but when he won a ring.
But I'm saying with the Lakers, like why I'm just mad he couldn't do it.
Yeah, I'm about to say that's gotta be what it is. Yeah. No, that the Denver thing I saw coming because with them I was like
and did Bruce Brown look like this with the Nets?
Yeah, he was coming. He
looked good, but he ain't look this good. Like as far as shooting wise.
I mean, but like I said, if you give them dudes open shots like that, they're gonna make them.
They ain't gonna make him. He ain't gonna make him in Indiana. Watch, just mark my word. I know what I'm talking about. I'm telling you,
that's not gonna discount what he did this year, though.
No, it won't.
Man, that ring don't mean anything. They can keep that ring.
Oh wow! So that's 2 rings you're gonna discount. That was a bubble and this one, huh? Okay. Oh, this is one. So we returned to 1983 finals with this one. We just had this conversation with Kareem and Moses Malone. Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna go Kareem. Yeah. I think this one's pretty.
Not too much to really debate on that one.
Yeah. Even though what we learned about Moses through all of this, though, is that I think he's a top 5 center ever. If because you go look at some people's top 5, they're gonna put George Mikan and shit in there and Robert Parrish.
McAdoo.
Yeah, like I think
Nate Thurman.
Yeah, like, but you know what Nate Thurman, what Moses Malone did is one of the most underrated things ever, and his 83 season is one of the most underrated like individual seasons we've seen from a guy. To immediately be a team's answer to the Sixers literally got him to say we need somebody to stop Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and for him to literally do that, call the series, win MVP, and make Kareem Abdul look like a hoe that series. That's one of the dopest things we've seen from an individual standpoint. But what Hakeem did over the course of his career, I think, is one of the best things we've ever seen, you know, in sports history.
I don't know. We might have to discount Moses. He had Charles Barkley on his team. No, I'm just playing.
Not when he won that ring, bro.
I'm just playing. But the crazy thing is, this has come down to who Taj thinks Shaquille O'Neal should have been in there. He thinks Hakeem should have probably taken his spot.
Yeah,
he probably thinks it should be Hakeem versus Kareem.
Yeah, I'm not even going to participate in this.
Okay. I'm going to pick Kareem. He's the undisputed. I think even if Hakeem was right here, I would still pick Kareem. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie.
You would
probably, too. But the gap.
No, yes, you would.
The gap between Kareem and Hakeem and Shaq and Hakeem to me is like, or Shaq and Kareem or Hakeem. Hey. The gap between Kareem and Hakeem and Shaq and Hakeem is like different.
You know why it might not matter? Because at the end of the day, it's the same result, like they say. I don't know. Kareem still a go to centers.
Y'all got it. You guys have to explain to me why Shaq is better than Hakeem Olajuwon. How Shaq has been more impressive than Hakeem Olajuwon.
You
just explain to me how he's like his peak was more impressive than Hakeem's peak.
I just think, in all my heart of hearts, he just can't handle Prime Shaq because Prime Shaq was way bigger. Prime Shaq was way bigger.
Way, dude. It's just.
Yeah, it's people. I'm sure there's people out there that say Shaq is better than Hakeem. Like, he ain't crazy.
I'm gonna say the same. They tripping if they say that because, like I said, how do you get bigger? You're already not a great defensive player, right? How do you put on more weight and still be able to hold the guy that beat you off of footwork? Yeah,
he might have beat him off of footwork, and I understand what you're saying. Shaq can't handle him on defense, but I honestly think you can't handle a 300-pound man who was still he gained weight, but he was still quick of foot, and he was still dribbling the ball up the court. He was still running the floor at times, so it's not like he was never running the floor. He had a lot of moments where he was still running the floor and catching alley-oops.
That can be great, but Hakeem, like that, some of the athleticism stuff you mentioning about Shaq is great, but this is just what I'm gonna keep saying. He couldn't handle him when he was lighter. He gets heavier. His issue was he couldn't handle Hakeem Olajuwon's footwork. So if I match them up, Hakeem is still going to play that guy off the floor. And also Shaq can get played off the floor because Shaq can't make free throws. So there were way more limitations, and there were you can't name me a limitation in Hakeem Olajuwon's game. I can name you two major limitations in Shaq's game.
He could shoot threes. No, nobody shot them.
Right? Yeah, but
I'm just playing. But that's the thing. The free throws thing. That's a good point because they did have Hack-a-Shaq, but he still averaged 30 points. I'm just be honest with you. And he made it, and people say he made him win a count. I don't know how true that is, but I'm gonna take him for their words. But the thing is, Hakeem
beat his only center in the 2000s to average 30. But go ahead.
Okay, but Hakeem, the thing with Hakeem is though, it's kind of like the veteran facing the younger player. Like he faced a young Shaq. That's why I'm having trouble. Like he didn't face the prime Shaq. If he had faced the prime Shaq and we had a clear conclusion, who would be better? So I'm just going off what I think would happen if he faced prime Shaq. He faced the baby Shaq. That's like for example, and this is a weird comparison. That's like when the Pistons faced baby Michael Jordan, even though he was still scoring and doing everything he could. That wasn't the Michael Jordan that was in the 90s. So that's the closest thing I guess I can say.
No, That Michael Jordan was better than the Michael Jordan in the 90s. He just didn't have the right system.
From a scoring standpoint, I don't think he was better because I think he learned how to play team.
I think he was better scoring wise in the 80s.
Scoring wise, obviously, but I don't think he was a better player because he just learned how to trust people better and just play better team basketball. I don't think he's better.
The Bulls' change in the 90s was the system. It wasn't Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was the same player, just played in a different system. My whole thing is this: we're gonna do hypotheticals. I don't see how a dude who was lighter in the 90s and couldn't stop Hakeem would have
baby.
Yeah, but like I said, but we're talking if we go in their prime. If you said Shaq got heavier, he couldn't handle Kareem's footwork or Hakeem's footwork when he was lighter. What makes you think he can handle it when he was heavier?
My point to you is I'm not. Because we're looking at the same way but in a different lens, kind of. I'm just saying neither of them could probably handle each other on the defensive end. Like you're saying, what I'm just saying, this is basically vice versa. He was like, I don't think Shaq can handle Kareem on the defensive end, but I don't think he could handle him either. But Hakeem was more of a defensive player than he was, but I still don't think he can handle him because he did get heavier. I will give you that. He did get heavier, and I never said Shaq could necessarily stop Hakeem. I just think he can outdo him on offense.
Shaq can play off the floor, bro. That's just my thing. Shaq could not.
If you give 2000 Shaq a liquor room, if you just give him the ball before you can even try to foul him, sometimes he would just turn around and just shove your ass out the way and dunk on you. Literally, that's what he was doing.
But also, there's so much.
Hakeem was skinny. He was a little slender for Shaq then. That's why I just can't see it.
But Shaq was way bigger than Hakeem. Like he obviously got bigger, but like I don't think you get better defensively when you get bigger.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he got better defensively. He's never been a defensive player. I just don't think Hakeem would have been able. Just like you saying, you don't think Shaq could do something with him on defensive end. I don't think Hakeem could either. I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
Who? Okay, from a coach's standpoint, who stays on that? Who do you think? Let's just be very logical. Who stays on that floor 4 quarters? You know it.
Hakeem. He stays on the court.
If I'm a coach, I see way more scenarios where I would have to bench Shaq, even in his prime, relative to Hakeem. Hakeem had no limitations relative to Shaq.
People was doing that, and he still won 3 in a row. I'm just saying.
He ain't had no comp in his position. That's what I'm saying. I just gotta know. We already
picked it, bro. I can't go back. Even if you're right, I ain't going. Even if you're right, I can't go back and pick it.
Yeah, tripping. All right.
Let me finalize the pick though. I didn't even pick it. Let me finalize this.
Hakeem.
I'm gonna pick Shaq to make it.
Yeah. Well, that does it for this pod. We'll catch y'all next time.
Yeah.